Practices for the East-West Shrine Bowl are underway. It's never too late to take a look at some of the prospects for the upcoming NFL draft, especially in these types of showcases. The Shrine Bowl has a number of very underrated players, and today we're going to take a look at some of those top prospects that are going to make their name known in the future. We'll go position by position. Obviously, we start with quarterbacks first, and there are a number of quarterbacks to pay attention to. One in Shedeur Sanders is not going to participate, so that's kind of disappointing. We don't get to see him go against different competition, but he is sitting out. So we're going to start with Max Brosmer. When you look at what Minnesota did this year, Max Brosmer was a big reason why. Obviously, he wasn't slinging it all over the field every single play, but he is a guy who is very underrated, and I think there are some people who have caught onto his game and have the optimism that he is going to be a good quarterback at the NFL level. Maybe, a backup or I don't know what they're going to see from him in terms of what the teams see, but this is a guy who has good mobility. He's not going to be the fastest guy, but he has the ability to escape the pocket, and at times Minnesota forced him to do that. He also has a quick release, so he's going to get the ball out very quickly. He's going to be able to hit his receivers and get them time to make plays. The concerns for him, obviously the first one is going to be the arm strength. And a lot of people have concerns about his ability to push the football downfield, but the quick release really helps with that. He makes quick decisions. He's smart. The only thing that you maybe have a concern about is when he gets pressured. Decisions under pressure aren't necessarily the greatest, but again, there's a lot of time for him to learn and figure things out from there. This is a guy who took a step from the FCS to the FBS level and did pretty well, so maybe he can do the same thing at the NFL level. The other guy, both of these, these two players that we'll talk about for each position are one's on the East team, one's on the West team. Kyle McCord is the other quarterback I'm very interested to look at. Another quick release player who can get the ball out, and I think what he did at Syracuse this year was really fun to watch. A guy who was kind of run out of town at Ohio State, found his new home at Syracuse, and obviously both sides were better off because of it, but it's going to be fun to see what Kyle McCord can do at the next level. Arm strength also may be a concern for Kyle McCord, probably a little bit less than Max Brosmer, and then the quickness. You're not going to be able to escape the pocket as well as Brosmer is, but those are things, again, that you can work towards and things that you can improve upon. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in these individual drills, team drills, how they're going to do when the actual game is played. So that's going to be really fun to watch. And this is a position that obviously a lot of people are going to focus on because of the importance of that said position. The running backs are full of talent, and honestly, picking two guys was pretty difficult. We're going to start with Jaden Blue, a guy who has NFL speed, he has track speed, he has the ability to be a game changer, and he is someone that a lot of teams are going to love purely for the raw ability. I think that he is a player that can be put into an offense and be an instant impact player. The burst that he has is one of the best in this class. His speed is one of the best in this class. I think we're going to be really excited to see what his 40 time is going to be, and whether it's in the combine or when they have their own pro days at Texas. The concerns for him, ball security. The first one we've seen, especially late in the season, was ball security for him. Experience. He doesn't have a ton of experience as a running back. I think that Texas used him as much as they could, but again, running the football was a little bit of struggle for the Longhorns, so maybe that limits his ability to make an impact. But it'll be interesting to see what team drafts him, how they utilize his speed. You already know that that's the first thing that team is going to try to figure out. How do we get him more involved? How do we get him the football as much as possible? And how do we stress the defense with his speed? Taj Brooks is kind of the opposite, if you will. His long speed and burst aren't necessarily the best, but he is someone who has a great base and is a multi-year starter who very productive at Texas Tech. Contact balance is really good. You're not going to be able to tackle him with just one guy. Something that's going to help him in between the trenches. You obviously would like to see him evade some tacklers, maybe make guys miss. That's where that burst and agility comes into play, but this is a guy who can handle the physicality of the NFL. Wide receivers, we're going to start with Ja'Cory Brooks and then go to one of my favorite guys in Ricky White. Ja'Cory Brooks honestly revitalized his career with a transfer to Louisville. He revived what was once an exciting career at Alabama. He had a really good season and then kind of fell off the face of the earth. Transfers to Louisville and gets him back on the NFL's map. Explosiveness and athleticism are easy to see why. He's a natural when it comes to that. Hands were a little bit of concern at times, according to some, and then the consistency. You just didn't see it as much, and part of it was Louisville maybe didn't have necessarily the talent to support him as well as they potentially could. He is someone who is going to be a really fun player to watch at the next level. We'll see if he can get that consistency going, because that's going to be a big differentiating factor of how do you separate yourself from the rest. Can you be consistent? Can you make plays? And one guy that's really good at that and is bringing versatility to the NFL is Ricky White. And when I say versatility, it's not that he's going to be lined up outside, inside. They'll be able to do that. He is someone who is going to be a special teams demon. He is already making his name known in the college ranks, and he's going to do it again at the NFL level. And we've already seen him running a number of routes where he's making guys fall. And this is a guy who maybe doesn't have the biggest frame, but he is someone who's going to find ways to win. He's going to find a way to get on the field as a rookie, whether that's as a wide receiver or in special teams. He will hit the field. It's just a matter of how much. Tight ends, another Syracuse Orange here, and Oronde Gadsden. And honestly, this is really exciting. With the injury concerns that he had, that's going to be a big concern for him. Coming back this year, there were a lot of questions about could he make it back to the NFL, and he answered those questions and really made it an undoubtedly answer that he's going to the NFL. His length and quickness are really good, something that people kind of concerned about with the Liz Frank injury. How do you get that burst back? He was able to do that. Run blocking, that's probably going to be another concern just because of his size, kind of more that wide receiver tight end, if you will, or that pass catching tight end. So his physicality is definitely going to have to improve if he's going to be more involved in an offense, but he definitely has the ability to stretch a field because of his size and his quickness. And the other guy is kind of, again, we talk about kind of the opposites. Luke Lachey still has the ability. I think Iowa tight ends get a little bit of all they can do is run block. And while he is definitely physical and can handle that portion of the position, his ball skills are still really good as well. He is someone that can make things difficult for the defense. He can stretch the defense, stretch things vertically, put pressure on linebackers. And the production is probably going to be concerned, but that's kind of the nature of the territory with Iowa tight ends. Production isn't going to be as good as some of these other players that you see, but Luke Lachey is one of the best tight ends in this class. Offensive line is interesting too, because you have a Georgia player in Xavier Truss that is looking to prove himself, honestly. I think one thing we saw with Georgia was the offensive line wasn't as dominant as it once was, and there are some concerns. You definitely have the raw talent at 6'7", 320. This is someone who is very capable of making an impact. His length and athleticism obviously stand out, but what can he do? Is his anchor going to help him right now? Leverage if he's not able to get low, and this is kind of the nature with the taller linemen when you're at 6'7", is you have to get low. If you don't have a strong base, it's going to be hard to block guys, and guys can knock you off your anchor, knock off your frame, your center of gravity. He is someone that's going to have to show that he can anchor down and play with that strength, find a little bit lower leverage, because guys are going to eat him alive if he can't. Drew Kendall's the other one, and Drew Kendall's a little bit of a different story. Kind of the underrated prospect, really the recruit. Didn't get as many offers as maybe a Xavier Truss did or some of these other guys, but he is going to be a player to keep an eye on. Instincts are great with him, and he's a smart player, and that kind of is stereotypical for a Boston College player, but instincts are great. He knows where to go. He understands what's coming to him, whether it's a twist or a blitz. He knows where to be and what to do when that happens. Quickness is really good in space. He can get out on screens, and that's really exciting too. I think balance at times for him, similar to Truss, can be a concern, but this is a time where you're going to showcase your talent, and if you have some concerns, obviously you're going to want to figure that out, but at the same time, you have time to work with these teams, and these teams are betting on upside. If you show enough upside, you feel like you're in a good position, and maybe they can iron out some of those deficiencies that you have. Defensive ends are interesting because you have two different guys that we'll talk about here. Tyler Barron is more that athletic, has that good burst, very good production at multiple schools, someone who is very capable of getting to the quarterback. You maybe just have some questions about scheme versatility. Sometimes his bend around the edge, kind of that lengthier frame that helps at times, but also kind of gets knocked off his path. But he is someone who's very interesting to watch in terms of being a really interesting product. Tyler Batty is going to be another guy, but kind of the opposite, more of that stout, physical. I wouldn't say stout at 6'5", but he's more compact, He's very physical, has good instincts, and maybe the explosiveness is lacking. So there's certain players that you have two guys that play the same position that are going to give you different different type of player you're adding to your team, and that's going to be really interesting to see how both of them can fit. If they find the right team, it feels like they're in a good position either way. Defensive tackles at the Shrine Bowl, very interesting as well. Jay Toya is someone who was rumored to leave UCLA, had a lot of offers, a lot of potential to leave in the transfer portal, but decided to stay. Very good burst at 6'3", 325. Very explosive player who's capable of taking up two blockers at a time. The power is definitely there, so that's something you definitely need at this position. But at times, I think he also is just content eating up those double teams. And a lot of times, that's going to make you a linebacker's best friend. But sometimes you do need to shred those double teams. You need to shed through them and make sure you're making plays. And sometimes that's not something that happens with him. But this is a player who is definitely has the raw tools. And again, we talked about upside. Teams are betting on the upside of certain players. And some of these players have really good upside. And maybe they just have a higher ceiling. Some of them are going to have a higher floor, and you kind of have to gauge what do you need on your team, because a guy like Jay Toya, I think, has his best football ahead of him, and it's just a matter of finding the right team. Eric Gregory is another guy who is 2 years of playing his position. He added a ton of weight 2 years ago and moved to defensive tackle, and he's done a really good job of managing that transition. Upper body is really strong, a good motor that's coming from his defensive end where he's chasing everybody. He knows how to get to the football. It's just a matter of if he's going to get it to go away from him, towards him. He's the guy who's going to get there one way or another. His lower body strength maybe has some concerns, but again, a lot of that has to do with his learning of this position. He's still relatively new to the position, and that's something that could take time for him to transition, but this is a guy who definitely has a lot of exciting things going for him, and the right team, like I said before, is going to make all the difference. Linebackers are full of productive players. This is a group that is very, very, very good when it comes to instincts, and Francisco Mauigoa and Jay Higgins are two examples of that. Francisco's great instincts, good agility, tremendous hit power. I mean, when you go watch his highlight reel, this kid flies around the field. Now, he doesn't have the biggest frame. His size is maybe a concern. Coverage at times looks a little bit like he's not super comfortable in it, but you have the raw talent, the ability to get places, the athleticism, the quickness, and again, the power. He is not afraid to throw his weight around. Even if he is a little bit on the smaller side for the position, he is someone that is not afraid to throw his weight around, and that's going to make him beloved in the locker room. Jay Higgins, a little bit, Iowa's got that. Again, linebackers are really good. The size and the athleticism are going to be a concern for him, but the tackling is unquestioned. This is a guy who is very productive, 124 tackles for Iowa this year, someone who's very physical, and again, he's not afraid to throw that weight around. If he adds a little bit more to his frame, that probably helps him a little bit, but he is a sure tackler, a guy who is, again, maybe more of that higher floor player that you're looking for, and maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling compared to the rest of the group, but still a guy that you want on your team. And finally, the defensive backs, and we kind of do defensive backs together just because corner and safety, you don't really know certain players what they're going to play at the next level, so we just kind of put them all together. One player that's really a big question is Siobhan Revell. I think a lot of people had a really high grade on him coming into this year. The injury that kept him out for most of the season obviously hurt that. This is a guy who's 6'3", 193 pounds, great length and speed at his position. The questions about him, ball skills at times are a little bit of a concern. The injury, how recovered is he? Is he back to 100%? Is he going to be able to get back to where he needs to be? Can he perform well in this situation? Those are going to be the big questions for him. Jason Marshall is another player to keep an eye on. As a freshman, a lot of people had high expectations for him, and we've seen exactly why. He's really good at locating the ball when it's in the air. He has the athleticism to make plays. The questions are about his physicality. Is he going to be able to play press man? Is he going to be able to help in run support? Those are going to be things that he's going to have to answer. The physicality is going to be a big one, but this is a guy who has the tools to be successful and a guy who could make a big-time impact. And those are pretty much the players. That's a really fun group, really exciting group. And the Shrine Bowl, like I said, is underway, but we'll see some of these players stand out and see what that means for the draft stock going forward.